Hey everybody. All right, well now we got the last and final robot from the Batteries Not Included movie. So this is another model. This is Carmen, the mother. She's the last one out of this line of figures. So once again, I got this model from Andy Valentine from Etsy. He's got the files to print all of these robots. You know, you got Weems, Flotsam, Jetsam, Kilowatt, and now we got Carmen. And Jacob is the gentleman that printed these for me. He printed all of these for me, and once again, another beautiful, beautiful job of printing. Now, Carmen is a little bit smaller than Kilowatt. You can see the two halves of her bottom go together and the two halves of her top go together, just like Kilowatt did. Let's take a look at these parts. Look at these really nice details going on here. Once again, fantastic details. I was looking at Carmen, some pictures of her, and these details are pretty spot on to the way that she looked. Here's the other half, right here. It's kind of, I think, mostly a mirror image of the other side. And then here's what the back of it looks like. Now this is pretty rough, of course. I'm going to have to do a lot of sanding to clean up some of these edges and stuff, and that's fine. That's how the other kits were. And then let's take a look at the top half of her. Here is one side. This is where her eyes are, or one of her eyes. You can see all this going on up here. She's a little bit thinner in the plastic in this area. I'm so used to Kilowatt. Kilowatt was kind of a beast of a model. He was big. He was a big model. And then that's the other side, and then that's what she looks like over here. Very nice. You can see all the detail here on the sides as well. And then we have her eyes. She's got really big eyes. Look how big her eyes are. I think she's got the biggest eyes of all of them. I'm assuming that's the top because it looks like her eyelid right there. I'll probably just paint those blue. I think she's got blue eyes. Once again, I'm not lighting this model. She would be another lighting nightmare just like Kilowatt because of how many lights. Plus she's got the spinning lights on the bottom and stuff like that. So I'm not going there with this. Here is the little antennas that stick out on the side of her. And then this little section here is really cool. Now, Jacob said he had a hard time printing this. He had to take several times he had to print this to make it turn out right, just because these holes are really kind of tricky to print. I'm guessing this is resin. It's cool that he printed it in clear, so if you did decide to light this, you can put the lights in behind it. Like I said, I'm not going to light this, but this is a really interesting piece. Now, there was one little flaw right here. You can see one of the holes is broke. But I think I can fill that in with putty. That's the only one that had a problem. So yeah, he said he had to do this several times to get it to come out right. And then this dome here, that fits on the bottom right here. And I'll probably paint that the same color as Kilowatts, where it's kind of like an off-white kind of color, and that's going to go in there. So I'm going to have to clean all these pieces up so they'll fit better. Also, these little things here. Now, this is pretty cool. I think they decided to take a different approach with Carmen because, as I mentioned in the Kilowatt video, I had a heck of a time getting the halves to go together. Things weren't fitting quite right and things like that. So what they chose to do on this one is, instead of putting the tabs that fit into these directly molded into the other half here, they made these little square pieces, these little, I guess some people call them biscuits, and they're going to fit in this little hole right here. Now I'm going to have to make sure that I sand these down. It's going to fit in here, and then the other one's going to fit on this side right here. And they'll go in about halfway, and then from there they'll go into this half of Carmen's other side. So I think that's pretty cool. I think that's a better way to do that. So I'm glad they decided to change that. So those two pieces go there, and then on the top half of Carmen, she's got one hole there, and you got the bigger square piece, or the rectangle, and that's going to go in here. So that one actually almost fits right off the bat. So you can see how that's going to go, and then you'll just kind of glue the rest of it. So I think that's going to be a better way to handle that. Both of these pieces came out really good. There's no flaws in them at all as far as the way they're shaped and angled, so that's really good. Once again, these robots from Batteries Not Included have the craziest paint patterns and stuff. And Carmen, I think, is going to be one of the most difficult. She's got shades of, oh gosh, it's like, she's got like copper kind of going around the edge, but then it's kind of like tan in here, and then it kind of fades into the copper. It's hard to explain. Her paint job is going to be really tricky. I don't think I'm going to be able to pull it off, but I'll try to do what I can with it. Then she's got all these details, all these raised details on here. They're just silver, so I can just paint those silver, much like I did with, let's see, was it Flotsam? I think Flotsam had the silver details up here. Once again, I'll just use some paint pens for that. Those work the best for that. But the overall color of her is going to be really tricky. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Oh, and the other color she has that's really weird, it's kind of like a salmon color. It's almost like pink. She's kind of got some pink going on in here, and it kind of comes up into these little areas in here. And yeah, that's going to be, I don't know. It's going to be, without a paint, without an airbrush, I think it's going to be really hard to do it. I really probably should invest in an airbrush one of these days. But I'm going to see if I can try to maybe just do a dry brushing technique and try to kind of like blend in the colors the way they are. She's just got another crazy paint color. All these robots had crazy paint colors on them. But anyway, I'm hoping I can try to make her look as good as the other ones turned out. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I got quite a bit of work done now. I did all the cleanup on both of these parts, so there's a lot of flash that you have to kind of clean off. And this part in particular, you'll see where all the little supports were attached to the greeblies. So you're going to have to take a hobby knife and really kind of get in there and start, gouging out some of the plastic that gets into these like little areas down in here. So you have to dig that out of there and just kind of, clean it up a little bit. But once you get it all done, it looks pretty good. The little biscuits, or those little rectangular things, I had to sand off quite a bit of it to make it fit in this half. In fact, I actually just took those outside and sanded it down on the concrete because it was way quicker to just remove the material off of those that way. And once you get them in there, they fit just fine. This one here uses the one in the middle. That needed a little bit of sanding too, but it works really well. Just when you glue this part, the upper half of Carmen, make sure you get the edges even. See how they're even right there? Otherwise it's going to look weird. So you want to get all that done. Let's see, I went ahead and filled in the seams, and then I also put a couple of coats of primer. So we got her all primered up and ready to go. So this lower half here, I think what I'm going to use is this paint here. This is Tamiya Ocean Gray 2 AS31. It looks kind of like a bluish gray that they used on the bottom of her. So I think that's what I'm going to use for that. This upper half is the part that's going to be a real challenge. As I mentioned on the end here, it's all pink all along the end, or all around the edge, and then the pink kind of goes up through these little indentations here, and then it kind of blends into the other color. So I think originally I was going to use this pink, but I think that's a little too bright. I'm going to try this. This is Model Color, what is this? Old Rose is what it's called. It's kind of like a darker pink, you can see there. I think that'll work for that. I'm going to hand paint the entire top part of her because I think that's just going to be a whole lot easier, because originally I was going to mask all this, but since the colors are going to end up blending anyway, I think it's not going to matter to mask it. And so that's going to be pink like I mentioned. Now from this point to this point is copper. So all the way around it's copper on that lower part of her little section right in here. So I'm just going to use the regular Tamiya copper for that. And then let's see what else. From here up to here, depending on what picture it looks like, or which picture you're looking at of Carmen, this looks kind of like a tan color. And so I was going to use this tan, but I think I'm going to use this one instead. This looks more, what is this called? Cork brown. It has more of the color that it looked like they used on her. It's weird how she's got like this tan color, because she has mostly metallic looking colors, and then you have this kind of earth tone that's right up in this area. And they've kind of blended the copper into the earth tone, and then the pink that goes up through here kind of blends into those colors. It's kind of a strange thing. In some of the pictures I saw, it almost looks like a gold up here, but I think that's just the way the lighting hit it. I was looking at the pictures of Carmen when she's in that museum, so I'm assuming that's what it was supposed to look like. This top area here, it almost looks like a burnt gold or something. So I think for that, I'm going to use this Rust. This is Model Air. I guess that's the number for it, but it has kind of it has similar, like a similar color to what it looked like. And if that doesn't work, I'll just paint it gold up there, and then maybe I'll do some weathering or whatever. But it's going to be tricky to paint her. That's definitely going to be the difficult part. But I think so far everything's going together pretty well, and I guess I can start working on this right here. So I guess we'll get started on that. Okay, so now I've got this all painted. I think that bluish gray is actually the right color for this. At least it looks, by the eye anyway, it looks about the right color. And then I started working on this. I did all the pink on the outside, and then from here, I think I'm going to do the tan next, and then the copper, and I'll do this part last up here. And then hopefully I can get it to blend in, but I think that pink is a better color than that other one. That other one would have been too bright, like I said, so I think this will be fine. And hopefully I can get her to blend. I don't know why the primer wouldn't cover that spot. Maybe there's some oil or something on there. I'm not really sure. But alright, well, back to work on it. Alright, well, there it is so far. I just have a little bit more to do on this, but this turned out way better than I thought I was ever going to be able to get this to look. Yes, I'm actually really shocked at how good this turned out. So first of all, I'm going to mention that she is way too shiny. These silver and copper areas are way too shiny. So I'm going to put a dull coat on this, because if you look at Carmen, she does not have a shiny finish to her. So that'll tone down all of that, because it is way too shiny. But I really love the way this turned out. So transitioning that pink and tan actually turned out pretty decent right there. And then I just kind of trying not to get so much glare on here. Let me see if I can turn this. So you can see how the transition to the copper is just kind of like a gradual thing. Kind of gives her kind of a little bit of a worn look, which she kind of does have. But I don't know. Mine probably looks a little more worn than the actual Carmen. But yeah, this shine is just too much. I can't wait to put a dull coat on here. And then I really love the way this turned out. I mean, the shading turns out really nice. I noticed that the pink on her eyes area, it's almost like they did it to put like makeup on her or something. It's kind of neat the way they did that. But yeah, this looks really good. So the next thing I got to do, just like Kilowatt, she has a bunch of little squares and rectangles all over her. And oh man, she's got a lot. I don't know if I'm going to be able to put every single square or a rectangle on there. I mean, for instance, like an area like this might have 5 different ones on there. And so I think I might try to do a few of them. I'm not going to go crazy with this, because I just think that it's going to take way too long to put. I have to mask off each one of those with tape. I'm going to have to do that all by hand, since there's no masks for this. Here's the bottom. I painted this part pink and kind of gradually dry brushed it down, as well as these sides here. That's kind of how it looks for her, if I can get it to focus. And then along these details here, she's got some gold and, or it looks like gold, or maybe it's copper and silver highlights on these little greeblies on here. Kind of like how I got that going on with this. See, I started doing some of the silver highlights here, and then some of that is copper as well. So I'm going to have to go in and use a paint pen on all of that to help bring all that in there. But boy, this turned out really good. Not too shabby for hand painting all of this. Alright, well, I guess I'll start masking all of this now. Alright, so here is the masking that I've done. So, like I said, I am not putting every single little square and marking on her, because she's just got so many. So I've kind of done my own thing here. I really have not followed any kind of pattern that she actually has on her. I just kind of made my own. And so what I did is I kind of mirror imaged everything. As you can kind of see, like these two mirror image to, you know, these two here, and, you know, these 3 and these 3. So it just kind of goes back and forth. You can kind of just see how each side is like a mirror image. And I think that'll be enough little silver details and stuff on there, because yeah, I just don't know if I can take the time to paint every single one of those. It's going to be crazy, and I think that'll be enough. I mean, she's already got enough detail on there as it is without all of that. So we'll see how that looks when it's all done. Okay, thank goodness. I can honestly say I'm done with the top the top part of Carmen. Thank goodness. I am glad to be done with this. That is the hardest part of this whole thing. But boy, you know, this looks really nice. I really like it. Yeah, those silver panels, I think that's plenty. Even though she has more, I made mine a little bit bigger so that they take up more space, and that way I don't have to make as many, and I think it looks just fine. So it looks like how she looks when you see her. She's got all those little squares and rectangles everywhere. I did finish off this edge, so I put some copper and silver all the way around here. And it goes all the way around, all this detail. So yeah, she's got a lot of stuff going on here. She's kind of got a busy paint pattern, I will say. And I did paint that thing silver now. So she's done as well. She's only done on the top part. But thankfully, I got this part done, because that has been this has just been crazy trying to get that done. So now I'm going to have to be working on the bottom now. Not as much to do on this one. She does have some more panels on here, but I think they're kind of gray colored, and I'll try to follow what I can see, but there's not a lot of pictures of the bottom of her, and I'm not sure if any of these Greeblies have any kind of color at all. I was looking at the pictures, and it looks like it's all just plain. It doesn't look like they did any kind of, what they did up here. You'd think that with all this detail that they did, especially like on the side here, they would do the same here. Now there might be, let me see, I think I will put some color on the side there. I'll probably do some copper and gold with that as well. I mean copper and silver. So I think that's what I'll do, but I don't know about this down here. But yeah, so thankfully this should hopefully be simpler. I say that now, but we'll see. Alright, well anyway, I'm just glad to get this done. I have been working on this for several days, and I really wasn't sure I could pull this off, but thankfully it happened. So I'm just grateful for that. Alright, so I was noticing on the bottom here that there's these big holes, and I was noticing it earlier, but I just thought that was part of the detail of her. But I was looking at pictures of Carmen online, and those are actually not holes. In fact, it looks like she's got little doors on there, is what it looks like. So I am guessing that what these were in the movie is that she had little arms that would come out. If you recall, if you've seen the movie, she had to repair Kilowatt, and so she had those little arms, and they probably came out of these little compartments. That's what I'm guessing. So I'm not really sure why those were molded in. I think it would have been better just to have these, closed. Or maybe the kit was supposed to come with the little doors that you can, choose if you want to have them on or off. So what I ended up doing is I ended up making my own doors. So I used this plastic here that's got the lines on it. You can see right there. This styrene sheet, it's very thin. You can buy this at the hobby shop. And I cut little doors just like this. Now you'll notice these are numbered. So there we go. So I had to trace around this hole and then cut these pieces out and then just sand them down, and thankfully this plastic is easy to sand. So this one here is number 2, and the reason I have them numbered is because there's a piece of foam board in there, so I couldn't just put these on here because it'll just fall down inside. So I took a piece of foam board like this, and number 3 is going to be the smaller hole over here, so I'm just going to drop this one right in here like this. Okay, and then number 4 is going to go in this one right here. Okay, and then that fills in that dead space that's in there, so that now you can put the little doors on and it's not going to sink in there. So it's just going to fit in there, and they fit pretty perfect, so I'm just going to push it in there and glue it. So I'm going to paint these things the same color as the bottom of Carmen. I was looking in the picture, and it's kind of hard to tell. They may be a slightly different color, and I don't know. I'm going to have to maybe decide if I'm going to make it the same color. But yeah, anyway, that's a quick way to fix it. It looks like they were smooth, but I kind of like that texture. I think that looks more interesting. So that is how to fix that problem if you don't want the little door, like compartment things open, which I didn't. I think it'll look better when those are closed. Alright, so they are now in place. I went ahead and painted them a light gray because I just felt that, well, I was looking at pictures of Carmen, and it looks like they are a light gray color. Like I said, I only could find one picture where you can see the bottom of her, and it's kind of a dark picture, so you can't really make out a whole lot of stuff. But I think those look cool, having them, light gray like that. It makes them stand out a little bit and adds to the detail. So yeah, so that worked out pretty good. Okay, so I've got all of this masked off now. I just kind of made up my own pattern here because I really couldn't tell that much about where these things were. I could see a little bit on some parts of her and in these areas, but not much else. So I just made all of this up as I went along, and went ahead and painted it this kind of a light gray color. It's darker than the doors, but it's lighter than the actual main color here, and that's kind of how it looked on her. Maybe that could have been a little bit darker, but I don't really have that many gray paints around, and I really don't feel like driving up to the hobby shop. So I think this will work. That's the same color I used on Kilowatt. So now I need to start coloring in some of these greeblies. Now on the pictures I could see, it looks like there's these greeblies here. They've definitely put some copper and silver along the outer edge, but when it comes to this underside, it doesn't look like they really put much color underneath here. I think these things are, these little spheres, I think are silver from what it looks like, but I don't know, it could be the same color, it's just the way the light's reflecting on it. And some of these things you can tell are copper, but it doesn't look like they colored a whole lot under here. It looks like they kind of left a lot of this empty. Well, from what I can see, I really wish I had better reference photos. So I'll just do a few things on here and see how that looks. Okay, so I've got all of this done now. I think I'm finally finished with this bottom section. I'm actually pleased with that gray that I used for the panels. I thought it was going to be a little too light, but I'm actually fine with it. So I did, as you can see here, I did add some color to some of these little greeblies. There's actually more color on here than what it looks like she actually has on her. And I am going to have to put a dull coat on here to take down the shine, because I mean that's like a mirror finish on there. And I think that'll be okay. And then on the side here, you can see I did do the front right here. And then also all this detail here. So yeah, just enough to kind of color it, because it looks like the edges, they paid more attention to the edges than they did the bottom of her. Maybe they just didn't think they were going to see that much of the bottom, who knows. But anyway, I think I'm finally done with this painting on the body, and now I just got to start painting all the little stuff. Okay, so I think I finally got all the painting finally finished. So here are Carmen's little antennas. I went ahead and put a dull coat on those, and then here's the other one. This is the bottom piece. It's like a two-tone color. Near as I can tell, this gray part is the same color as the bottom of her, and then this other section is a silver part. So I just masked that off, and then I have the white dome right here that's going to fit right in here. So I'll have to glue that in place. I'll have to make another stand for her. I'm going to use another one of those cylinders. What is it like? It's like a cylinder acrylic riser that I used for Kilowatt, if you watched my Kilowatt video. And the reason is because even after I glue this completely flat, that dome is going to sit up just enough that if you try to set this down, it's going to make her all wobbly. That's what happened with Kilowatt, so that's why I had to make that little stand. I'll show you what I mean when I get to that point. Here are the eyes. Her eyes are blue. She has a kind of a cool blue color to her eyes. I thought I would try, so it's gold for the rest of it, and then I thought what I would do is I painted the blue part white underneath there, and then I used some clear blue Tamiya paint right there. And I had to put quite a few layers on it to get this kind of a color. And then, so I dull coated the gold, but I left that part shiny, because I think that'll look kind of cool, letting her have shiny eyes like that. So anyway, alright, so now I think I'm ready to finally glue her all together, and then hopefully we'll see what she looks like when she's all complete. Okay, here she is at last. At last, she is finished. Oh boy, another exhausting build. I tell you, I am so glad this is the last of the batteries not included robots. I knew this was going to be a difficult one, mainly for the paint, but once again, I had problems getting the top half onto the bottom half, but this time it was my fault. When I was making, okay, so I was going to use super glue to glue the upper and lower half together, but when you're putting this top part on, you're going to have to kind of push down on it to make sure everything fits snug to the bottom part. And super glue works so fast that you're not going to have time to get everything in there. So I used 5-minute epoxy. Well, when I was, you know how it comes in 2 syringes, when I was squeezing out the syringes, one of the sides wasn't coming out as much as the other, but it was still coming out, and I figured, well, okay, you know, the mixture should be fine. And of course, I shouldn't have figured that, because that was not the case. After I got everything all in there and put everything down and taped everything to hold everything down, about an hour later, it was kind of staying on, but not really. So I had to pull everything apart, and now you've got a big mess inside because that stuff didn't fully cure because the mixture wasn't right, and so I had to try to clean it all up. So, and then after that, I tried it again, made sure both of the sides of the epoxy came out to mix it properly, and then it went on fine. But then from that point on, it seems like every time I touched something, you know, it was really sticky, and it was hard to get it off my hands. And I kept like touching areas and getting sticky stuff on there. It was so frustrating, and thankfully I put a dull coat on there before all of that happened, because if I kept touching that, I would have ruined the paint job and I would have had to start completely over. So thank goodness for the dull coat. I'm glad I put that on. But I mean, after all that frustration, I'm glad that she turned out okay. She's not 100% perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I think she turned out pretty good considering what a complicated paint job that she has. So looking at her eyes, I think those turned out pretty good with that blue, that clear blue. It kind of makes it look like there is maybe some kind of a plastic lens or something on there, just the way it turned out. Maybe a better way to do that. If you wanted to light Carmen up, you could always have these printed in clear, and that way you can have her eyes light up. Same with that bottom piece, which was printed in clear. But, well, actually, you don't need to worry about that. The light would shine through those little holes and grills. But once again, Carmen would have had a crazy lighting pattern to her. If you look, like in this area here, she's got these spinning lights up here, she's got spinning lights down there, and it would have been really, you know, you can make circuits that way if you're good with electronics, which I'm not, so as I've mentioned before. But here we can see the top of her. Let me see if I can get some good light up here. But notice how that turned out really good. I'm really happy with the way this whole thing turned out, considering I didn't use an airbrush. The tan does mix pretty good with the pink down here and the copper. I would say this middle section is a little bit lighter on the real Carmen. It's more of a, I don't know, kind of a weathered, oh gosh, I don't know, I'd have to go back and look. Almost like a weathered copper or something like that. I used rust for that, and I'm fine with it. I think also the tan was a little bit lighter as well on the real Carmen, but you know, I guarantee you most people wouldn't even notice one way or the other. And as far as these little silver bits all over the place, as I mentioned, I just made these a little bit bigger. She has a ton of these little silver things all over. It would have taken me forever to do all that without having any kind of masks or anything to use. You know, you're kind of on your own on a kit like this. You really are, because you're just having to kind of wing it when it comes to a lot of this stuff. Now, you know, I know it looks sloppy in some parts. Like I said, I had a heck of a time with this kit. Just sometimes the way the paints were going on, and then when the sticky stuff was happening. But I tried to get all these details on here. She does have more of these little silver spots that are all over here too, but I can only mask so many of those, and I was getting so tired of masking. You know, if you watched my kilowatt video, that was a masking horror, trying to get all those in here. So she had a lot too. Carmen did, but not as much as you know, kilowatt. When I was pushing this top part down on here, you have to really squeeze on it, and of course it split this right here, so I had to try to repair that. You can still see where the repair is, but at least it doesn't have a gap on there. And then I had this really, there was kind of varying gaps between the pink and the bottom here, so I had to fill that in with putty. If you look at Carmen, these areas that I've kind of dragged the paintbrush down to kind of give it like almost a dripping effect or something, she has, I think there's like maybe some kind of squared off areas on there. But once again, I just really was so tired of masking, I just went ahead and just dry brushed to carry on the pink down to the lower section like you see here, because that's just kind of how it looks on her. But you know, I think it, and overall, I would say this kit is pretty darn accurate. You know, Andy Valentine, as I mentioned, does the files for these. His files are really good on these robots. He's done so well with these. I'm really pleased with it. Kilowatt's really the only one I had some problem with. but I think he's tweaked that since then, as far as I know. But Carmen here is she's beautiful. I mean, he did a really good job with her. I'm really happy. You know, when I started working on this, I was like, I don't think I can pull this off, but somehow it managed to happen. Once again, in my usual case, I broke the antennas. These things are so fragile. I think I've broken the antennas on every one of these guys. And I think on Carmen here, I broke them probably like 2 or 3 times on each side. Every time I repaired it and everything, I accidentally tapped it and broke it again. I was like, oh my God. I just don't have luck with those. Let me show you what the bottom of her looks like. All right, so here we are looking at the bottom now. Most of this you've already seen, but you know, it's the first time you're probably seeing this part. There was a little bit of a mess up on the printing right here of this. You can see the lines right there, but it's no big deal. I just put that near the back, and then that one hole was kind of messed up. I tried to fill it, but once again, I didn't do very well on it. I did make those doors, like I mentioned, where her arms pop out. Maybe Andy can make that an optional piece to put in there. But without the arms that come with this kit, it's probably better just to have those just closed to begin with. But, you know, it's not too difficult to make those panels if you want to. But anyway, the rest of the details here are really good. As I mentioned, I could only find one good picture, well, one semi-good picture of Carmen on the bottom to see what it looks like. And really, I can only see this portion of her, and then the rest of it I just kind of had to do guesswork on what has a color on it and what doesn't. But it didn't look like she had a whole lot of color underneath. But I am very pleased with the way this turned out. I mean, this kit is really very nice. And in here, of course, if you want to put lights in there, you most certainly can do that. But I don't do lights in the models anymore these days, and especially this one. This would have been a very difficult model to light. But I keep showing you the bad side of this, and it really should be over here. But honestly, I'm so scared to touch her, because every time I do, something breaks or something. Once again, for the stand, I just bought this riser from Amazon. It's just it's solid on one side here, and then it's hollow on the other. And this hollow section allows that bottom piece to go through here. And I just hot glued some felt on there just to make it a little softer. On a Kilowatt, if you watch that video, I glued I put some clear tubing on there that you can get from fish tanks. But I found that stuff kept sticking to him. And so I ended up taking that stuff off and putting felt on instead. So if you want to use this kind of a method, you can probably do a better job of gluing this on than I did. But that soft felt makes a nice little cushion for her to rest on. And of course, we have to show the entire family all together now. Here they are, all 5 members of them. I cannot tell you how many hours of work this is, but boy, you know what? How cool to be able to finally get all these guys together. There's been no official kits ever made of the batteries not included robots, and now we can finally, thank goodness for 3D printing and people that can create these files for us. We can actually buy and make and build these wonderful characters from the movie. I love it. So there we go. We got Kilowatt, Carmen, Weems, my absolute favorite Weems, Flotsam, and Jetsam. So there they are. It'd be kind of nice if I could get a case for all 5 of these to sit in all together. But as it is, I've only got cases for these 3 in the front here. I'm working on a case for Kilowatt, and hopefully I can find one for Carmen. But yeah, so they're, you know, try to keep them dust free if I can. But yeah, I love these guys. Absolutely my favorite. Weems there, of course, was the only one I ever put lights on. And when I turn off the lights, we can see that his eyes are still working, thank goodness. Thankfully, nothing has fallen apart with that. But I think all of these guys would definitely benefit with having lights if you can muster up the strength it would take to do the electronics for it. So there we go, the entire family all together now. I am so glad to be done with this build series. This has been some of the most difficult models I put together, mainly for the paint work on these guys, because they all have such crazy paint jobs on them. Carmen was definitely a challenge for sure. But these guys turned out really good. If you haven't seen the movie, Batteries Not Included, it's from 1987. It stars Hume Cronin and Jessica Tandy, 2 amazing actors. The movie is just a fun movie, a feel-good movie at the end. Also, you know, these robots are the star of the show, as they generally are for movies like that. Weems, of course, the little runt, he's my favorite. He's just adorable. But it's a really cool movie, so check it out if you can. And if you want to build these models for yourself, go to Etsy and look up Andy Valentine. He's the one that makes the files for these guys, and he will sell you the files and you can print these up. Or if you don't have a printer, hit up Jacob. Jacob is the gentleman who printed all of these for me, and he did an excellent job on all of them. I think they turned out fantastic. So, oh man, so cool to have the entire family together. Alright, well that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed the build series for all 5 of these guys, and if you did, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'd very much appreciate it. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on the next video. So thank you again, and have a good one!